the day the galaxy watched. The Galactic Council had ruled for longer than most civilizations could remember. To the older species, it was a necessary structure, an ancient institution that prevented wars, balanced expansion, and ensured no single race rose high enough to dominate the rest. To younger civilizations, it was both a shield and a leash. It offered protection from extinction-level threats, but in return demanded compliance, restraint, and patience. Humanity had accepted its authority cautiously. For decades, Earth played by the rules. They negotiated borders. They slowed colonization efforts when asked. They shared technology under supervision. They even allowed council observers into human space, something no species did lightly. Humans were not trusted yet, but they were tolerated, and that, everyone believed, was progress. Until the broadcast. It began without warning. Across every system connected to the interstellar relay network, civilian channels flickered and died. Trade feeds vanished. Entertainment streams cut to static. Military frequencies were overridden without resistance. Then the symbol appeared. The Council's crest, a perfect circle formed by interlocking species sigils, glowing in stark white against a field of black. A formal override. A tribunal announcement. Those were rare. They were never public. Yet this one was. Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched as the feed shifted to a view of a prison station suspended in the void. It orbited a dim red dwarf star, its light casting the facility in a permanent twilight. The station was massive, industrial, brutal in design, built not for habitation but containment. And inside were humans, 50,000 of them, families, scientists, colonists, engineers, diplomatic envoys, all taken months earlier from the disputed Halcyon expansion zone, a region humanity had believed open for settlement. The Council had said negotiations were ongoing. The Council had said the detainees were being relocated. The Council had lied. A voice filled the broadcast. Calm, measured, inhumanly detached. The Tribunal of Stability has reached its conclusion. The speaker did not appear on screen. They did not need to. Authority did not require a face. These individuals represent a destabilizing vector within the galactic order. Images flashed across the screen. Human settlements expanding rapidly across frontier systems. Trade alliances forming with minor species. Technological exchanges accelerating growth beyond projected models. They spread influence at unsustainable rates. More images. Human-built infrastructure on alien worlds. Mixed species trade hubs. Joint research stations. Such behavior risks systemic imbalance. The view returned to the prisoners. Rows upon rows stood inside containment fields, their movements restricted by shimmering energy barriers. They were not bound. They were not kneeling. They were simply waiting. This tribunal finds humanity's expansionary methodology incompatible with long-term stability. A pause followed, long enough for dread to bloom. The sentence is corrective removal. Somewhere across the galaxy, someone must have expected negotiation. A ransom. A deportation. Instead, the floor beneath the first row of prisoners lit up. A soft blue glow. Almost beautiful. The humans didn't scream. They barely had time. The disintegration fields activated silently. One moment they stood there. The next, they were gone. No ash. No remains. Just absence. A collective gasp spread across the galaxy. The tribunal continued. This act serves as both resolution and instruction. Another row vanished. This species must understand its limitations. Another. This galaxy must remember its boundaries. And then the executions continued in steady, mechanical sequence. 50,000 lives erased, not in chaos, but in order. Systematic, deliberate, public. Some species turned away. Others watched in stunned horror. A few understood the message. The Council was not just punishing humanity. It was reminding everyone what happened to those who grew too fast, too strong, too influential. When the final row disappeared, the station fell silent. The containment fields shut down. The empty halls stood as proof of the Council's will. The broadcast lingered for several seconds, long enough for the lesson to settle. Then it ended. Across the galaxy, communication returned. Trade resumed. Entertainment feeds flickered back to life. And slowly, the shock began to spread. On dozens of worlds, emergency sessions were called. Allies questioned what they had witnessed. Neutral powers chose silence. No one spoke openly against the Council, because no one ever had, except Earth. On humanity's homeworld, the broadcast had played in full. Every nation saw it. Every city. Every household. Families recognized faces among the condemned. A daughter. A brother. A colleague. Entire research teams gone. Colonies erased not by war, but by decree. And yet, there were no riots. No immediate declarations. No fleet mobilizations broadcast across the networks. Earth did not scream. It did not threaten. It did not plead. For 12 hours, humanity said nothing. Then, a single message was transmitted across the same interstellar relay network the Council had used. No override. No spectacle. Just a signal. Simple. Direct. Undeniably human. We have witnessed the act. That was all. No accusation. No anger. No demand. But across the galaxy, those who understood humanity felt something shift. Because humans did not unite easily. They argued. They divided. They hesitated. But history had shown one constant truth. When humanity stopped speaking, it had already decided to act. The silence before the storm. The galaxy expected outrage. It expected protests, emergency summits, threats of sanctions, the usual storm of political noise that followed any controversial tribunal decision. What it did not expect was silence. 12 hours after the broadcast, Earth had issued its single response. We have witnessed the act. And then, nothing. No speeches from leaders. No mobilization announcements. No calls for justice. Even more unsettling, human media channels went dark on the topic. The tragedy was not debated publicly. There were no experts shouting across panels. No analysts predicting war. Humanity did not react emotionally. It reacted internally. Behind closed doors, Earth moved with terrifying efficiency. Within the first hour after the executions, every major government on Earth had entered emergency coordination protocols. Historical rivals sat in the same rooms without argument. Military commanders who once prepared for conflict against each other now shared tactical intelligence without hesitation. Old alliances reactivated. Dormant ones formed overnight. And for the first time in history, Earth's Unified Defense Charter, a document created generations earlier as a contingency for existential threat, was invoked without debate. The trigger condition had been simple: external execution of human civilians by a foreign power. The Council had just fulfilled it. Across Earth's orbital space, fleets began to move. Quietly, ships left docks under routine pretexts. Training exercises were scheduled, then quietly expanded. Logistics chains shifted toward munitions production without public explanation. Factories adjusted outputs. Research divisions lifted long-standing ethical restrictions on wartime AI deployment. And yet, there was no declaration of war. The United Earth Directorate did not accuse the Council. It did not demand reparations. Instead, it issued a second statement to its own people. We will respond with unity. That was enough. Human history was filled with conflict, but it was also filled with moments when division vanished overnight. Pearl Harbor, September 11th. Moments when something external struck deep enough to override politics, ideology, and culture. This was larger. This was not an attack. It was a demonstration. A message sent to humanity and the rest of the galaxy alike. You are not beyond correction. But the Council misunderstood something fundamental. Humans did not fear correction. They feared injustice. And this had been injustice made spectacle. Beyond Earth, the first signs of change appeared along the trade routes. Merchant captains reported unusual traffic in human-controlled space. Convoys moved under military escort. Medical ships departed orbital stations. Supply freighters shifted from civilian markets toward fleet depots. Observers from neutral species noted the pattern immediately. Humanity was not panicking. It was preparing. Even more disturbing, it was doing so without mobilization rhetoric. There were no speeches about vengeance. No propaganda calling for retaliation. Instead, human diplomatic channels remained open, courteous, calm. When asked for comment by allied species, Earth's representatives gave the same reply every time. We are reviewing our position. But the galaxy had begun to notice something else. Human silence spread. Their trade envoys stopped attending routine council sessions. Their scientists withdrew from joint projects. Human advisors stationed on foreign worlds requested immediate recall. It was not abandonment. It was consolidation. Even the council noticed. Within days, internal intelligence reports began circulating among its member species. Human fleets were repositioning. Shipyards were operating at maximum capacity. Encryption protocols across human networks had shifted to wartime levels. And yet, still no declaration. Still no threat. The tribunal interpreted this as submission. The removal of 50,000 civilians had served its purpose. Humanity had been reminded of its place. That assumption would soon prove fatal. Because what the council failed to understand was this. Humans did not always respond quickly. But when they responded slowly, it meant they were choosing how. On Earth, the final piece fell into place 3 weeks after the broadcast. In a secure chamber beneath the Directorate complex, representatives of every major human power gathered. Military leaders, civilian officials, scientific advisors, cultural historians. Because humanity did not make decisions like this lightly. War was not just strategy. It was legacy. And humanity remembered what happened when justice went unanswered. The chamber was silent as the final report concluded. 50,000 confirmed dead. No survivors. No negotiation attempts. No legal review by the council. The executions had been performed not as punishment for crime, but as correction for growth. The distinction mattered, because it meant the council did not see humanity as equal. It saw humanity as a variable to be controlled, and control was not something humans accepted easily. The vote that followed was unanimous. Not for war, for response. Hours later, a final message was transmitted across the interstellar network. It was addressed to no one in particular. No accusations, no ultimatums, just a declaration. Justice must be answered. The wording puzzled most species. Justice was a legal concept, not a military one. But among humanity, the phrase carried older meaning. Ancient, instinctive. It meant something simple. A wrong had been committed, and balance would be restored, by whatever means necessary. Across the galaxy, those who studied human history began to grow uneasy, because humanity had entered a familiar state. Not rage, not fear, resolve. And history showed one terrifying truth. When humans stopped arguing among themselves, they started focusing on someone else. The judgment of the strong. The first human fleet did not arrive with a declaration. It did not broadcast demands. It did not even identify itself. It simply appeared at the edge of council space, in orbit around an enforcement outpost known as Stabilization Node 14, a facility responsible for monitoring expansion compliance across multiple frontier systems. The outpost sensors detected the arrivals seconds before they translated from faster-than-light travel. 7 ships, angular, unfamiliar, silent. Council protocol was immediate and well-rehearsed. A warning signal was transmitted. Unidentified vessels. You're entering a regulated zone. State your intent. No response came. Instead, the human ships moved into precise formation. The outpost defense grid activated automatically. Weapon arrays powered up. Shield matrices expanded. Again, the council hailed them. Again, silence. Then the outpost went blind. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Blind. Targeting systems failed first. Then communications. Then internal sensors. Within seconds, Stabilization Node 14 became a fortress unable to see its surroundings. Human cyber warfare had reached through its systems like a ghost. And then, the boarding began. Dropships detached from the 7 vessels and crossed the void without resistance. No point-of-fence weapons fired. No alarm sounded. Inside the station, Council personnel scrambled to respond. They expected bombardment. Instead, they found themselves facing something far more unsettling. Human soldiers, moving fast, moving unpredictably. Zero-gravity combat was common in Council training, but the humans fought as if they had evolved for it. They used surfaces others ignored, angles others overlooked. Within minutes, key control centers were secured. No mass casualties occurred. Security forces were disarmed rather than eliminated. And the prisoners inside the facility, dozens of detainees from minor species awaiting tribunal review, were released. A single message was left behind before the humans departed. This station has been judged. It was not signed. It did not need to be. Across Council space, similar incidents followed. Enforcement hubs lost control of their systems. Fleet depots found their weapon stocks disabled. Surveillance arrays went offline without damage. Human forces appeared, acted, and vanished. They did not conquer territory. They dismantled authority, and they did so with unnerving restraint. Council strategists were baffled. This was not invasion. It was correction. Human operations targeted only instruments of enforcement, prisons, monitoring stations, security fleets. Civilian infrastructure remained untouched. Trade routes were left intact. Local populations were unharmed. It was as if humanity had drawn a precise line between power and people. But the Council still possessed overwhelming strength. It responded by deploying a defense fleet to intercept one of the human strike groups near the Kethra corridor. The engagement lasted 12 minutes. Council warships entered the battle with superior numbers, advanced shielding, and centuries of tactical doctrine. Human ships entered with none of the above. They did not match formation. They did not follow predictable patterns. Instead, they adapted. Real-time, mid-battle, human vessels altered weapon frequencies faster than Council defenses could compensate. Drone swarms shifted behavior dynamically, exploiting gaps in shield harmonics. Electronic warfare units rewrote targeting algorithms as the fight unfolded. Within minutes, the Council fleet lost cohesion, not through destruction, through confusion. Systems malfunctioned. Orders failed to transmit. Target locks vanished. And one by one, Council ships were disabled rather than annihilated. When the engagement ended, the human fleet withdrew, leaving the Council vessels drifting, intact but powerless. A message followed. This force has been judged. No triumph. No threat. Just judgment. The galaxy watched in growing disbelief. Humanity was not waging war for dominance. It was dismantling the Council's ability to enforce fear. Where prisons once stood, detainees were freed. Where fleets once projected authority, they now drifted harmlessly. And wherever resistance escalated, human forces escalated faster. Guerrilla tactics in asteroid fields, ambushes in nebulae, cyber assaults that turned defense grids into liabilities. The Council's greatest strength, its structured doctrine, became its weakness. Because humanity did not fight by doctrine. It fought by adaptation. And adaptation was chaos to those who relied on order. Within months, entire enforcement regions ceased functioning. Not destroyed, neutralized. Council officials found themselves unable to implement rulings. Tribunal decisions went unenforced. Fear began to fade. And without fear, authority weakened. For the first time in its history, the Council realized something chilling. Humanity was not trying to replace it. Humanity was removing its ability to act unjustly. System by system, fleet by fleet, outpost by outpost, and always with the same message left behind. This has been judged. The phrase spread quickly across the galaxy. Some saw it as warning. Others saw it as hope. Because humanity was proving something no one had dared test before. The Council was not invincible. It was merely unchallenged. Until now, the fall of the Council. By the time the Council understood the scale of what was happening, it was already too late. Humanity had not come to conquer. It had come to reveal. The shift began quietly. Across neutral systems, encrypted data streams appeared without origin. They bypassed Council firewalls effortlessly and surfaced on public networks, not as propaganda, but as archives, records, decisions, hidden rulings buried for centuries. At first, they were dismissed as fabrications. Until verification began, the documents were authentic. Council authorized suppressions of planetary uprisings, silent eradications of species deemed culturally volatile, economic blockades designed to collapse independent civilizations before they could grow influential. Whole histories rewritten under the justification of stability. And threaded through it all was a pattern. Growth was permitted, but only within limits defined by the Council. Progress was acceptable, but never beyond their control. Any species that evolved too quickly was corrected. Humanity had not been the first. It had simply been the first to be punished publicly. The galaxy reacted with disbelief, then anger. Member worlds demanded answers. Council representatives denied nothing. Instead, it justified everything. These actions preserved galactic balance. The response ignited outrage. Because for the first time, the truth was undeniable. The Council had never been a guardian. It had been a regulator of power. And now, its authority was crumbling. Entire systems withdrew allegiance. Enforcement fleets refused deployment orders. Local governors shut down tribunal offices rather than face their populations. The fear that had sustained the Council for centuries was dissolving, replaced by something far more dangerous. Accountability. Amid the chaos, humanity made its final move. The prison station, the same one used to execute 50,000 civilians. It was seized without resistance. Council defenses failed before the human fleet even entered range, their systems neutralized by the now familiar cyber warfare that had dismantled enforcement networks across known space. Inside, the halls remained as they had been, sterile, silent, haunted by absence. And there, humanity prepared something the galaxy had never witnessed before. A trial, not secret, not hidden, public. Across every communication relay, humanity broadcast its intent. The surviving members of the Tribunal of Stability had been located, apprehended, and transported to the station. No executions followed, no immediate punishment. Instead, chambers once used for containment were converted into courtrooms. Evidence was presented, testimonies gathered. Survivors of past corrections spoke openly for the first time. Historians compared records long suppressed. Even former Council officials came forward, freed from the structure that once shielded them. The proceedings were meticulous, painfully thorough. Humanity was not seeking vengeance. It was building truth. Across the galaxy, billions watched, just as they had watched the executions. But this time, the spectacle was not death. It was responsibility. The tribunal defended itself, as it always had. We acted for stability. Humanity's response was simple. Stability does not justify extinction. Day by day, the illusion of benevolent control unraveled. The Council had not prevented chaos. It had curated it, guided it, ensured no civilization rose beyond manageable limits. And when humanity crossed those limits, it had chosen demonstration over diplomacy. 50,000 lives erased to preserve balance. Now the balance was shifting. When the trial concluded, the verdict was not delivered by humanity alone. It came from observers representing dozens of species, worlds once too afraid to speak. The judgment was unanimous. The tribunal had committed crimes against sentient existence. Their authority was revoked, their rulings nullified, their structure dismantled. And in a final symbolic act, the disintegration chamber, where 50,000 humans had vanished, was deactivated permanently. Not destroyed, preserved. A reminder, humanity did not execute the tribunal. It imprisoned them under the very laws they had once denied others. Because justice was not destruction, it was consequence. As the broadcast ended, the galaxy faced a new reality. The Council had fallen, not to conquest, not to annihilation, but to exposure. And Earth issued its final statement, not as victor, not as ruler, but as witness. Let no power exist without accountability. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was not governed by fear. and the lesson humanity left behind echoed far beyond its borders. Retribution was never about revenge. It was about ensuring that what happened once could never happen again.